Izuku Midoriya is born into a world full of quirks or superpowers. These quirks and superpowers all vary. They vary from explosions that come out of your hands to even you becoming a washing machine. All of these things differ in the world of My Hero Academia and in this land of Japan. And it seems like Izuku, as a young kid, is excited to see what he can become and what he can truly be. Well, that's going to happen all at the age of 4 when he learns what his quirk is all about. He learns that his quirk has a lot to do with the biology and his DNA. It seems that everything within his body has a, high likelihood of changing. It seems like when he gets a scratch from a paper cut, that paper cut, if it tries to scratch him again or gets a little paper cut again, he'll have the durability to withstand it and the cut will not be so deep. Now, if that continues to happen, it will get to the point where Izuku can no longer be affected by a paper cut at all. And it might sound kind of odd because we're talking about paper cuts here, but that is something that is very important to think about when we are dealing with a world with various superpowers and superpowers that could be extremely powerful. And this is when Izuku realizes very quickly that his new quirk, that his power is beyond his own comprehension, because even while going through the years, from 5, 6, 7 to even 12 years old, Izuku can feel that his entire body is changing, literally changing massively, evolving borderline. Seemingly every time he does a push-up, every time he does a sit-up, every time he does a squat, he seems to get drastically more strong. The punch or the sit-ups, the push-ups and all these things become so easy to Izuku that by the age of about 12, he's able to do 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 sit-ups in, one sitting and not even break a sweat. That's how crazy just normal training regimen is for Izuku Midoriya. And he gets all of these normal training regimens throughout school, just being in PE. His absolute stamina, his way of running and all of this stuff, he just barely even gets tired. Izuku would even bring up to his mother that it might be a good idea for him to, learn martial arts or learn stuff like that because, his body seems to adjust to it so quickly and so rapidly that it might be a great idea. I mean, straight up, Izuku would be an absolute prodigy in this aspect, but at the same time, even if he isn't a perfect prodigy, he would get kind of evolved from it, learning from his mistakes. And when he goes into a beginner's martial arts class at the age of 12, he actually learns from his mistakes quite quickly. I mean, he doesn't know how to defend against a head kick a certain way. Well, he'll never be hit by that same kick ever again, evolving massively and being able to adapt to it massively as well and stop it in its tracks. And he continues to evolve. Punches don't hurt as much. Kicks don't hurt as much. Body shots, punches to the face, his nose. He had a broken nose the third day that he was in martial arts class, learning karate this time around. And guess what? After time would go by, he would stop actually getting bloody noses at all. It didn't matter if someone would punch him right in the face, right on the nose. Nope, didn't matter at all. He wouldn't feel it at all. Wouldn't hurt him, and it wouldn't even break his nose. It wouldn't make his nose bleed. It wouldn't do anything. Izuku would continue training with martial arts teachers, would continue training in other ways as well, just regular, running and, sit-ups, push-ups, whatever you can possibly think of, maybe lifting weights a little bit, but he wasn't doing anything crazy, but he was evolving rapidly. And as the years would go by, he would be pretty impressive as a just physical person, as a person himself, like somebody who is a really good athlete to an extent. Izuku would be decently popular, nothing crazy. It's not like people would be like gushing over him all the time, but let's just say the females around would take notice of Izuku's kind of physique and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, Izuku would be getting stronger, faster, have more stamina, every single thing. He gets better at it all, and he didn't really have any kind of intro into quirks in terms of like, getting hit with other quirks or, being messed around with. The only one that he actually has some sort of introduction to is Bakugo's explosions. Now, it might sound cruel, but it is the reality that Bakugo, flat out hurts Izuku from time to time because he's a bully, shooting him with an explosion. And throughout the years, Izuku would take this type of brutal display from Bakugo. But guess what? Over the years, he would get more durable and more durable and more durable to the point where the explosions barely even affected him, making his skin itself more durable to the point where explosions or heat-based things that could lead to explosions or are similar to explosions don't affect him at all, which is pretty damn impressive. But of course, if you crank up the explosion to a very high degree, it won't be that simple. You can't just survive a massive explosion. It's not that easy. But in terms of a condensed explosion that is at a smaller scale, Izuku can definitely survive it. Now, this makes his explosive durability or his explosive kind of resistance a lot more than you could possibly think of. And on top of that, throughout his martial arts training, his punch and his resistance to getting hit by decently powerful opponents has risen quite a bit. And throughout this time, he continues to get stronger, get better, and get more durable throughout all of this training. But his strength itself as well continues to get stronger and more powerful. I mean, seriously, when you punch something over and over and over again, you'll eventually become strong enough to actually make it hurt. And Izuku and his quirk helps him do that drastically. But throughout all of this training, throughout all of this kind of, understanding and him trying to figure it all out with his quirk, he hasn't gotten necessarily proper training with the quirk specifically. But he's still able to have massive benefits from his quirk, and he'll still be able to have a chance at getting into UA High School, in which his middle school kind of teacher would bring this up, saying that it seems that Bakugo is not the only one trying to get into UA, and that it seems like Izuku is actually one of those people, that he is actually trying to get into UA High School as well. Now, it seems that Izuku would kind of be berated by Bakugo a little bit, but of course Bakugo knows that he can't really do anything. He can't really and necessarily do anything to Izuku, like can't hurt him for the most part. But of course, this is something that Bakugo still wants to get his, get off his chest. He's still shooting explosions at him and doing whatever, but nothing works, nothing's valid, and nothing's going to really hurt him to a large degree. And he basically tells Bakugo just to like go away, like stop messing with him. Like seriously, like he just wants to continue on with his studies, continue on with working hard and getting ready and getting prepared. And he knows that he's mad that he's trying to get into UA, but he's still going to get into UA. So there's no point in arguing, no point in getting mad, no point in fighting over it, because there's just no point in doing anything like that. In which Izuku tells him that they'll be seeing each other very soon, and he assumes that much. And he continues throughout this time to just prepare himself, getting ready for this 10-month training. And also, don't forget, learning and studying as well, because that's a big portion of things too. Which, by the way, Izuku is extremely smart because of this quirk as well. Now, with all that said, he does walk home through or underneath that bridge once again, and he runs into the sludge villain. The sludge villain who is terrified of All Might and terrified of getting caught, telling him that he needs his body. In which Izuku, he immediately is thinking that he cannot allow this villain to get a hold of him, because if he does, it might be all bad news, because if this villain gets the quirk that he has, the villain might be able to overcome all the weaknesses that he ever has. So Izuku goes sprinting away, and the sludge villain is actually shocked, thinking that, whoa, this kid is freaking fast. How is he so damn fast? And he tries to get a hold of Izuku, but he misses, unable to actually get a hold of him. And as they get to the end of the bridge, Izuku continues to dodge, weave, and get out of the way, getting to a more open area, jumping on something and climbing up so that he can avoid the sludge villain. And as he does, he hears this the manhole cover basically smash open once again. And Izuku slightly looks, but then moves his head quickly because a giant gust of air would come slamming through the tunnel, smashing into the sludge villain. Immediately, the sludge villain would be into pieces, small pieces, being destroyed and splattered all over the area, and he looks to see that there's only one person there. That one person is All Might. All Might has defeated the sludge villain in one singular punch, and he was the one chasing him down. And then he realizes, wait, the sludge villain did say something about All Might, saying that he couldn't get away from that person. But he didn't know he was talking about All Might. Like, that's insane that the sludge villain was getting chased by him. That's the #1 hero. That's the strongest hero to ever exist. In which that makes him kind of snap back into reality, and he starts asking All Might for, for his autograph and this and that. He's, oh, I'm such a big fan, blah, 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 all that stuff, And he's excited. I mean, oh my goodness, this is All Might himself. This is the one and only. This right here is the #1 hero. And he's just excited to ask him a bunch of questions, in which he does. He asks him a ton of questions about being a hero, about what he should do to be a hero, about how he could be a hero, and All Might asks about his quirk, in which he telling him that he actually evolves from different experiences, from getting, burned by hot water or maybe steam, to even getting, like a stubbed toe. He's like, I genuinely have not stubbed my toe, or if I did, I haven't felt it in the last 4 years, in which he thinks this is kind of insane. He asks him, so you're meaning to tell me that if someone punches you enough, you'll eventually get to the point that you're so resistant you won't even feel it? And which Izuku nods his head, saying that that's the truth. And he says that, well, if someone like him punched him, it would be a different story. Trying to overcome someone that powerful isn't that easy, and you would need a lot of display of that power, at least to an extent. He hasn't really seen his quirk be, reached and bounded to that degree, but you never know. His power might be legit limitless, in which All Might thinks about it like, whoa, maybe his quirk is that powerful. I mean, that's pretty damn awesome. And he tells the kid that he's excited to see what he's able and capable of, and he's excited to see what he can do at UA High School. And he assumes that that's where he's trying to get into, in which Izuku says, yeah, that's 100% what he's trying to do. And he's excited to try to get in which All Might nods his head, saying that it will be really awesome to see him get as far as possible, but he'll have to go now. He thanks the kid for his help, especially with cleaning up the sludge villain, and All Might takes off. And this time around, Izuku doesn't grab onto his leg like an idiot, so he just watches All Might jump away, and he thinks that he really had a pleasure with basically being able to talk to the one and only All Might. Like, that was freaking insane. But after all that is said and done, Izuku has a lot of training to do, a lot of stuff to kind of incur, and a lot of things to learn. So over the next 10 months, he continues with his normal training regimen of lifting weights, running, basic stamina training, stuff like that, trying to get just genuinely faster. Like, he's gone to the point where he doesn't just do normal running. He straight up will do sprints as far as possible in stuff that would make it extremely hard to run in, from sand and stuff like that. Anything to slow him down. I mean, he's even tried to run on ice, which he believes that running on ice and getting kind of more stable with that, making it so that he has more friction when he kind of runs on ice and stuff like that, so he can just run on it. That's something he's been trying to work with. Shoot, even in the back half of the training, he actually starts training in swimming, and he starts doing different things like that, like jumping higher. He tries anything that's like an Olympic sport that would help him in the long run to be a hero. That's genuinely what he's trying to do and what he's trying to get into, because he believes that if he's like an excellent swimmer, like borderline like a fish, I mean, it might be helpful if there's water around. Imagine if he can, run on ice. Imagine he has to run across ice. He can slide across it with ease without even worrying about falling or doing this or doing that. So he believes that all of these things would be beneficial for him, and there might be even more for him to learn in the long run. But of course, he doesn't know everything, not just yet, but he has tried a lot of different things, And he'll continue to try them even once he gets into UA High School, which that right there is a guarantee. And Izuku wants to make sure he gets in there, which he will. At least that's what he thinks. Now, with that said, Izuku is ready to go into the UA entrance exam, and that's where we're about to go into. The UA entrance exam is going to compile itself of a written and a practical portion, and Izuku is prepared for both of them. But before he even goes in, he would actually trip and fall. Something kind of funny, because he wasn't this big of a klutz and he's not used to like the area around here, so he was actually able to trip and fall. But someone behind him would actually catch him not with her hands, but well, sort of with a quirk, being able to levitate him at least slightly and save him from splattering right on his face. In which Izuku thanks and says that it's, you know, awesome that she was able to do that and blah blah blah. And she apologized for not asking first, but Izuku understands. I mean, at the end of the day, you legitimately couldn't ask unless you wanted to see me, get smacked on the face. In which she shrugs her shoulders and says that is true. In which he says that he hopes to see her again and they'll chat very soon. In which he doesn't even pick up her name, just leaving before anything else is said. Izuku would head in and he would see that he has to sit right next to Katsuki Bakugo, and he would tell Bakugo that he assumed as much, that they would be sitting next to each other and they would be eventually seeing each other's faces once again. As much as he hates his own face, or he hates Izuku's face, it doesn't mean that they can't at least get along for the moment. And of course, Bakugo just ignores him, thinking that he's annoying, and Izuku shrugs his shoulders, awaiting the first thing to do, which would be the written portion of the test. And the written portion of the test was a breeze for Izuku. We're talking, he scored almost a practical perfect score on the written portion of the exam, but the practical portion of the exam is going to be a little bit different, because the practical is about destroying robots. 1-pointers, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, all the above, and he's gonna have to figure out how to destroy them. And that's exactly what he's gonna try to do. With the gates not opening just yet, and with the timer counting down, and as President Mike swings open the doors and tells everybody to run, saying that on a battlefield there is no countdown, he would run out and he would try his best to actually destroy robots. Now, in terms of destroying them, it is pretty damn difficult. It's nothing easy. These robots are solid metal, and some are weaker than others, but it's no easy way of destroying them. In terms of his strength, in terms of punching power, I mean, he's able to destroy a 3-point robot, but it takes a little bit of work. It's not just a one punch, boom, and it's destroyed. No. He has to actually, punch it to some and then pick it up and slam it, whatever you gotta do, stuff like that, in which this does slow him down quite a bit. But he's able to, for the most part, get a decent amount of these robots, destroying one after another. But as it seems that there aren't that many left, he's kind of worried, thinking that there's a good chance that he didn't get to the point where he wanted to, and he's not going to be able to get into UA. And he thinks to himself that that's horrible. Like, if he can't get into UA, he's gonna feel like a freaking failure. But seriously, it just was such an awkward thing, or an awkward practical exam. I mean, this exam, it definitely is better suited for those who have more powerful quirks, in terms of raw power, like explosions, like fire, like being able to speed through each robot, or whatever you can think of like that. Maybe even pick them up with a gravity quirk and slam them down. A lot of those things are a lot easier than just raw power, in terms of raw actual physical strength. And Izuku realizes that he needs to get even stronger, that if he can't just punch through metal, that he needs to prepare himself to do just that. In which, with the timer running down, with the 0-point robot actually showing up, Izuku realizes that it must be basically the end of the exam. As he's running away, he looks and sees a girl screaming and asking for help, saying that she really needs help, and the teachers who are watching are trying to decide if they should shut the 0-point robot down, because the 0-point robot might just hurt her and might just step on her and kill her. In which, out of nowhere, Izuku would come running in, immediately picking up all of the heavy rubble over her. Literally, the rubble that is probably hundreds of pounds, picking it up and throwing it off of her and throwing it out of the way, picking her up and running as fast as possible. And as people watch him run, they're like, damn, for just a normal person, because that's what he is, he doesn't have anything crazy for a quirk, he's pretty damn fast. Like with someone or with him picking up somebody, it seems like he's not even running any slower, like at all. He's still running at almost tip-top speed, which is pretty damn impressive. Everyone watches this as he actually saves this girl, and after it is all said and done, the speakers come on, and the UA entrance exam is decided to be over, in which Izuku thinks that he didn't get in, that he thinks he didn't destroy enough robots, that he didn't do well enough. But he'd be very, very ecstatic when after weeks would go by and he would get a letter and it would say that he got into class 1A in UA high school. He's, don't get me wrong, not like the first place person or anything. He got extra points from rescue. He got a perfect score borderline on the written, but that puts him kind of in the echelon of like the top 8 to top 10. That's where he currently is. He just really didn't have that many points, and the rescue portion of the points, he didn't get that many points out of that either. I mean, all he really did was push off rubble and save her and run her away. It wasn't some spectacular display of power that led to her actually being saved. So he didn't get the full point, like he didn't get some insane amount of points out of that. Still, he was able to get a decent amount, plus the written portion, how good he did there. He probably would have gotten in just barely, even without that rescue. But now this puts him in more of the top 8 range, putting him at a higher echelon of what these students are. Now, with all that said, the first day of UA is soon to come, and he's excited to see what is going to happen. And when he walks up to those doors and he sees how big the door is and how wide the door is, he thinks to himself that there must be some very interesting people in this class. Some big, some tall, some small, and some with a lot of unique quirks. And he's excited, so excited to see what they all can do. He walks in, and the first person he lays his eyes on is Katsuki frickin' Bakugo. Of course he got in, and guess what? The kid is the #1 student, and he doesn't even know it yet. Or at least Deku doesn't even know it yet. In which, after some time of talking and doing, some delinquent things, at least according to Aizawa, eventually Aizawa would enter, telling them all to shut their mouths, telling them that they are not going to this orientation and that they are going to do a little bit of training. And that training is a quirk assessment. He wants to see what they're all capable of, see what they can do. In which they would all head out and they would all basically start this training to see what they're all capable of. And of course, to start off with, we had something basic. We had a simple ball throw, and that is with the #1 student, Katsuki Bakugo. And in all honesty, everybody already knows what's coming, and it's a very, very, very far throw. Now, this immediately would start with the obviously arrogant remarks from Bakugo, leading to everyone thinking this is going to be so fun and so swell and whatever. But of course, Aizawa would shut it all down, because Aizawa would tell them all that this is serious, and that if they don't take it seriously enough, they might just all get cut by the end of the day, being expelled and their hero journeys down the drain. And he tells them that actually they're going to do a little something here. They're going to make it so that if whoever's the last person, or whoever finishes or is last in terms of quality of quirk assessment, will be expelled. In which this is when everyone starts getting real serious and realizes that this is really important. And Izuku, well, he does his damn best, and it starts with the ball throw. Throwing the ball as far as he can, he throws it pretty damn crazy. I mean, it's borderline the same as someone that would throw, like, if you're like a professional pitcher. Like, that's how strong Izuku is possibly at this point, and he's played certain sports, so pitching the ball or as far as possible isn't anything too crazy, but it doesn't go like some insane amount like some super power throw. Now, with that said though, it is pretty impressive, and all of his scores become pretty damn impressive as well. How fast can he run? He runs pretty fast. How much grip strength how fast can he do side steps, all of these things. He's really good at almost every single thing, if not every single thing, which allows him to excel all over the all kind of across the board, and leading him to actually getting number 1 in this assessment, which kind of impresses Aizawa. Aizawa thinks like, this kid, I mean, he's pretty damn impressive, even though he has a quirk that basically has to be evolved over time. You know, a quirk that has to continuously get stronger and stronger and stronger. Seeing that he's already pretty damn high up there is pretty freaking wild. And Aizawa even says this, and says that it seems like the number 1 student really isn't all that he acts up to be, and it seems like someone who actually was supposed to be maybe a top 8 student is better than him at this, which this would piss off Bakugo, making him absolutely enraged, so much so that he goes to try and shoot an explosion at Izuku. But guess what? Before it can even happen, his quirk is cancelled and he is grabbed by Aizawa and slammed to the ground. Aizawa tells him to not do a single thing ever again. Do not ever attack a student, or else he'll be gone forever. And his hero's kind of journey, his wants and desires to be a hero will go down the drain quicker than he could possibly imagine. In which this is obviously a massive threat to Bakugo, and Bakugo shuts his mouth, and you know, he definitely just goes along with the rest of the day without, you know, making too much trouble. But of course, he still is talking all of this arrogant smack to Izuku, leading to them actually and eventually going on to the next training session, which is with All Might himself. Everybody is shocked to see him. Excuse me, everyone is shocked and clamoring. I mean, this is All Might. This is insane. How is All Might one of the teachers, in which this is exciting work, and Izuku is excited to train with the one and only All Might, especially once he hears what they're going to be doing. That is Heroes versus Villains training, where we're going to have the heroes versus the villains, and the villains will protect the bomb. The heroes will try to touch the bomb within a 5-minute period. The teams are Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida versus Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka. And this excites Izuku. He wants to show everyone that the quirk assessment was not a fluke, and that he is that much better than Katsuki Bakugo, even though Bakugo did get the leg up in the UA entrance exam. And before you know it, when the 5 minutes of preparation were over and Izuku and Ochako head inside, it is now time for the 1 versus 1 once again versus Bakugo and Izuku. And this is a crazy one, because immediately Bakugo shoots explosion after explosion, and Izuku just dodges. Dodging this, dodging that, making move after move. And then eventually Bakugo would let loose an explosion of an insane magnitude, exploding in a massive explosion all around the room, covering it all of smoke and kind of debris. But as the smoke is there, Izuku, well, he comes out of nowhere, walking straight through the smoke, and everyone is in shock. He's not even hurt. He grabs Bakugo by the wrist and he slams him on the ground and kicks him in the face, and then punches him one last time to knock him out cold. Izuku looks at a camera and shrugs his shoulders as all the dust is wiped off of him, and as he brushes it all off, everyone realizes that this is the real deal, that Izuku Midoriya is no freaking joke. Izuku would walk back upstairs, eventually finding where the bomb is, and he would go head to head with Tenya with the help of Ochako. But even the speed that Tenya has, it's not enough to truly kind of balance out the scales with the two of them there. And in terms of fighting skills, Tenya's not even close to Izuku Midoriya, and he's able to defeat Tenya with one kind of sling over his shoulder, throwing him back toward the front door, or the door that they walked in at, and they would both walk over and touch the bomb, completing their mission and making it so that the hero team wins. Of course, everyone is in shock to see how well that was approached by Izuku, but nobody is more embarrassed than Katsuki Bakugo, thinking that he has so much more to do and so much higher to climb if he really wants to defeat Izuku Midoriya. But what's to come next is something that Izuku and the other classmates aren't ready for by any means. That is a date and a fight with the League of Villains. A fight between the League of Villains and UA students, including, Aizawa and them at a rescue facility, is not something they were prepared for and not something they were expecting, but it's bound to occur. But what's going to happen when the League of Villains invade the USJ? Well, you're going to have to find out in the next part of What If Deku Had an Evolution Quirk. Izuku Midoriya has just finished his first actual hero training session, and that hero training session went pretty damn well. And let's be honest, it definitely showed the level that Izuku Midoriya is currently at, because it showed that he was at a completely different level than the one and only Katsuki Bakugo, who is legitimately the #1 student in UA high school, at least for first years. And Izuku showed that his quirk doesn't even affect him, or to a large degree doesn't even affect him, which is pretty damn wild. And the reason for this is we all know that he did get bullied by Bakugo from, here and there, so it stopped actually being effective on him to a large degree. Now, does it affect him a little bit? Does he feel the burning sensation and stuff like that? Yeah, to some extent, but it doesn't actually fully affect him, making him, for the most part, borderline immune to explosions. And Izuku, well, he shows and has showed that to a large degree and showed how powerful he really is, and showed how powerful and how capable he really is. But all of that will change very quickly when you enter this next thing that they're going to be training in, and that is a rescue facility. They're going to be training at a rescue facility known as the USJ. But the USJ, it's a very, very, very good training facility. But here's the thing. When the invasion of villains, the League of Villains, begins, that's where things get thrown out of all sorts. They would all take a bus over to the USJ, all talking about their quirks and what they can do and what they're capable of and blah, blah, blah. And when they would arrive, meeting Pro Hero 13, they would then go in thinking this is going to be an amazing day. This is going to be a great training session, but that's not the case. The League of Villains would show up with portals opening up all around. Eventually, Izuku would realize that this is something that is not anything to do with an actual training session. And he could tell that it's all going to basically shit really quickly. He tries to talk to Aizawa, asking what he should do and blah, blah, blah. But he basically just tells him, look, you guys got to stay safe. Stay where you are. Stay where you're at. Don't get hurt. Don't be in a bad situation. And that right there is the reality of it. And Izuku knows this to be the case, knows that they need to make sure they're in a good situation and stay safe no matter what. And he tries to do that, but soon a portal would open up, sending him to a different part of this location, sending him right where a lake with a boat is currently at. He would get submerged in water, and he begins swimming around, going to the surface, looking for a way out. Seeing that there is actually basically things or people in the water, and it seems like they are like weird looking creatures to an extent or something along those lines, and they begin to just absolutely attack. They begin to attack Izuku, trying to get a hold of him, but Izuku, he's pretty damn fast in the frickin' water. It might seem odd, but he is pretty damn quick. He's on the level of an Olympian. Yes, it's maybe not as fast as them, but he has enough control to where he can move around and get in and out of certain areas. So he's able to dodge, weave, and then basically get out of harm's way. And luckily enough, he's able to, for the most part, save himself from bodily harm. And it leads to, well, the one and only, basically Asui swooping him up and grabbing him and yanking him out of the area and putting him back on the ship. Luckily, this is when they kind of think about a plan to get out, and Izuku, with some help of Asui and stuff like that, they're able to actually find a way to jump from one end to another, but with Izuku trying to basically use his raw strength to give them a bit of a boost. And this works pretty well, and it works overall pretty good, and they get out just in time and avoid these other creatures to a large extent. Now, this is where things hit the fan pretty hard though, because Izuku is thinking they need to get to safety, but he also sees that Aizawa needs quite a bit of help. Fighting a ton of these villains by himself is no freaking joke, but once the other villains get involved, that's when things will go really bad, because Aizawa is going to have to deal with some extremely powerful people and some extremely powerful kind of villains, and he's going to have to deal with them by himself. And it's very, 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 very difficult to deal with. And Izuku, he thinks he needs to help. He needs to try to help. He needs to do something, but he can't. Not at the moment. He helps Asui and Mineta get away, going to safety for the most part. And he even kind of talks with some people, asking what they should do, what should happen, and what is even going on. And he hears that they actually sent Tenya Ida to race off to UA and to get help. This is good, and Izuku thinks this is really good, but who's going to help Aizawa? Especially as the Nomu steps in to fight. The Nomu comes and he goes to basically bash Aizawa's face in, and Izuku runs in, grabbing Aizawa, moving him out of the way, barely getting him out of the way before he could be extremely hurt. Izuku stands in front of the Nomu and he sees Kurogiri, and he also sees Shigaraki standing behind him, at least to like a far distance away, but standing behind the Nomu. Aizawa tells the kid to get out of here now. This is not a good idea, that he can't take the punches from this thing. And Izuku looks at Aizawa and asks, can he take the punches? And of course Aizawa would shake his head, and Izuku says that he's fast. They're both fast, but they can stall this thing out. He knows they can. They just have to make sure to keep their eyes on that guy over there, or those two guys over there, being Kurogiri and Shigaraki. He knows they have some sort of quirks that can really mess up this fight, so they need to stay absolutely 100% locked in at all times. They begin fighting, and Izuku's able to move out of the way and dodge the Nomu, and dodge him pretty successfully for a while. Him and Aizawa would begin kind of taking aggro and doing this and that, not getting into a brutal kind of altercations with the Nomu. They want to make sure that they don't get hurt very badly by the Nomu during this time while they're stalling for the one and only All Might. But eventually Izuku would get hit, would get smacked by the Nomu, and he would block it, and he can feel his arms borderline cracking. He feels them massively hurting, and he can feel the pain spiking throughout his body. He hasn't felt this pain before, but he knows that all he has to do is withstand it, and he can evolve from it. He can adapt to it. He stands his ground, and he begins to try his best to get to the Nomu and land hits of his own. He punches the Nomu, hits the Nomu, kicks the Nomu, but guess what? Nothing. Not a single thing. But Izuku can feel that the Nomu has some sort of quirk that is kind of defying or kind of negating the damage that is trying to be dealt by Izuku himself. He punches over and over the Nomu, taking blows from the Nomu that he never knew that he would be able to actually take on and be okay with living. He didn't know that he would live through this, but as the more he's getting beat up, the more he's becoming durable. He continues to take blow after blow, and he tries his best to keep up, tries his best to take this Nomu down. All he can think about is that if he goes down, they all go down. And as he's absolutely getting beaten, and as he's trying to dodge his way out of things, he sees a portal open behind him and a hand come out of nowhere. It grabs him, and the Nomu goes for a punch as well, but luckily enough, Shigaraki can't use his quirk, with Aizawa canceling it. Izuku would sort of dodge out of the way, and the Nomu would punch the hand, actually breaking one of the hands of Shigaraki. Izuku would sigh in relief as the Nomu would then look up and punch Izuku in the face, sending him flying. Izuku would slam into the concrete wall, and he would be basically out cold. unable to move for the most part. He struggles. He tries to basically climb his way up the wall, kind of like off to the side, up the staircase, and Shigaraki, the Nomu, and Kurogiri are hot on his tail. Aizawa trying to help him massively throughout this as well, hoping that All Might would eventually arrive. An explosion would come out of nowhere, and then followed up by a large iceberg, as well as the arrival of All Might would ensue. All Might would come out of nowhere, punching the Nomu straight in the face, and Aizawa still completely, unscathed for the most part, and Aizawa is keeping Shigaraki at bay. With a healthy Aizawa and All Might there, it seems that All Might's going to be able to take down the Nomu, and all of the kind of issues with Shigaraki would be solved with Aizawa there helping as well. Of course, though, this isn't just the end-all be-all. This is just the beginning. This attack, this invasion is something that they're going to have to worry about for a very long time. And Izuku, well, his eyes, his consciousness is petering more and more as he sees All Might and the Nomu clash over and over and over again. As he's fading and as he's going away, he sees a person that looks extremely angry with blonde hair grab him and tell him that this isn't over yet, and that he should have stayed awake, and that he should have stayed conscious. This makes him and both of them look weak. He flies off with Izuku, getting him to safety, and Bakugo saves Izuku from any more harm, as Izuku would pass out and later on wake up after the events of the USJ have already happened. And this would lead to Izuku going into a 2 to 3 day coma, eventually waking up, and a lot of people are concerned, especially with his quirk and the way it works and how it works. There's just no way that he should have been in a coma this long. But it's because his body was evolving this entire time. All the punches, all the accumulation of damage that he has taken, well, it's all adding up, and it's all becoming kind of more apparent that it's basically adding thicker skin and more durability to his body as we speak. And Izuku, well, he wakes up days later, and he asks everybody what happened, what's going on, how did he get here, how long has he been out, and they all tell him, like, look, one thing at a time, don't worry about it, take a breath, everything's okay. They're gonna have to, run some tests, see if he's okay, his body, see if everything is working in tip-top shape. And they, at the end of telling them all this, they tell him that Bakugo actually got him out of harm's way after he stalled for All Might to arrive. In which Izuku would nod his head and say that it's good to hear that they, won. In which they, of course, say that is a interesting way of looking at it, that winning, losing, but surviving is what matters. And Izuku says that that's what he's good at, surviving. In which this would lead them to telling him that the UA Sports Festival is upon them very soon. Actually, it's only a day or two out. And they tell him that doctors say, of course, Recovery Girl, they say no, that he is a no-go for the UA Sports Festival. But Izuku says that he has to. He's not well known. He doesn't have a flashy quirk. He needs to be in this so that he can, get better, so that he can actually get a good person and get a good agency and get into a good internship. How is he supposed to do that if he's not going to show off his abilities? What is he supposed to do? Like, seriously. In which, of course, they tell him that they're going to figure it all out, that he's going to get into a good internship, and they're going to get all the help they possibly can. But this is not negotiable. It's non-negotiable. He cannot go into the UA Sports Festival. That is the reality. Izuku would shake his head and he would ask, what about those other villains? Shigaraki, whatever, the guy that looked weird, and the other guy that was like made of shadows and smoke or whatever it was. He asked, where are they? What happened to them? In which, of course, Aizawa would tell him that they're actually in custody. Well, both of them are. In which the Nomu, it seems like the Nomu isn't really what it normally is. In which they wonder, what is that thing? Well, Shigaraki and Kurogiri are both villains like that, but the Nomu, on the other hand, is like a puppet in a way, and they don't know what's going on, and they won't get a single thing out of Shigaraki or Kurogiri. I mean, Shigaraki will respond, But Kurogiri, on the other hand, stands there completely and utterly dormant, as if he's also a Nomu as well, or something like it. But he'll respond from time to time, depending on the circumstance. But other than that, he won't respond. Silent. Only waiting the orders of Shigaraki and being kind of the perfect person to stay silent and the perfect person to not give away any information. So they haven't gotten jack squat out of them. Which, of course, Izuku shrugs his shoulders and says it doesn't matter as long as they're captured and as long as they can't get out anymore. I mean, at the end of the day, all of those villains should be behind bars, and that's what matters. In which Aizawa says that it's good to hear that the kid is in good spirits for the most part, and that they'll be talking very soon, especially after the UA Sports Festival, in which Izuku, unfortunately, watches from his, well, you know, his bed. Literally watches from an actual hospital bed, which absolutely sucks. But throughout the UA Sports Festival, there is actually a tribute for Izuku and a tribute for kind of him being wounded and helping and saving a bunch of his classmates. A lot of people, it's a tribute in terms of, like, you know, for his injuries and stuff like that. And everybody is of high praise for Izuku Midoriya, and everybody seems to be in good spirits in that regard. But Izuku, he wants to be out there. He wants to fight. He wants to take them on. He wants to show what he's capable of. He wants to go one-on-one with the strongest people there. And as he watches Katsuki Bakugo win, it seems that Bakugo isn't satisfied as well. But he would have never thought that Bakugo would have done this. With the mic closing in on him and everybody asking, how does it feel to be the winner? He tells them all that it doesn't even count. That Izuku Midoriya beat him. He beat him a while back, and he continues to be a better fighter and a better what seems to be hero than him at the moment. He will soon eclipse Izuku Midoriya. He will eclipse Deku. But guess what? Right now, this win is hollow. This win means nothing. And Izuku Midoriya, well, he would have been the winner if they stood face to face today. At least that's a hard thing to swallow, but it's the reality. And he's pissed that he even says this, but he's pissed also that Izuku was unable to basically be here, because he wanted to prove that he could beat him. But he knows the reality that he wouldn't have been able to, not just yet. And this, well, makes everything go haywire. Everybody wonders, Izuku Midoriya, who is he really? What is happening? What's going to happen? And on top of that, what is he truly capable of? If he can beat somebody who is literally the winner of the UA Sports Festival, I mean, that's a big freaking deal. And well, a lot of agencies, and a good amount of them, begin to send him a ton of offers. Agency after agency sends him offer after offer. And it seems like a lot of them are prepared to take them on and see what they can actually do. And a lot of them are prepared to basically take them on and see what, what's possibly Izuku Midoriya is capable of. And that is where Izuku realizes that Bakugo really had his back in this. Bakugo not only pulled him away from the danger and flew him away, saving him, but he also had his back in terms of their futures as a hero. And Izuku is excited to see what's next in his own internships, and excited to see what's going to happen. Izuku prepares for his offers, looking at every single one of them, looking at a vast amount of them. But one of them really piques his interest. One of them that he believes will be beneficial to him massively. And that is with a absolute powerhouse of a hero by the name of Mirako. Mirako, the rabbit hero, is and will be able to help him in a lot of ways, especially with his ability to fight. And that is what he wants. His ability to be durable and his ability to actually fight consistently and punch as hard as possible. And when he begins training and goes over to Mirako's agency and begins to train with her, he soon would realize that the beating he took and the punches he threw, they all mattered, because he is far freaking stronger, like a large amount stronger. And Miruko's even shocked to see what he's capable of doing, even able to keep up with her to a certain degree, in which this leads to their training being massively fruitful, not just for Izuku, but also her. But it massively helps Izuku because his body gets stronger, his fighting ability even better. Every aspect, every single thing, it's better and better and better. And it seems to get increasingly better over 1, 2, 3, 4 days. But throughout this week, they don't really do any kind of, real hero work, you would say. Izuku would keep up on some studies and stuff like that in terms of hero association and hero kind of work in general. But in terms of what this this internship was, it was training. That's what it was. That's what this kind of whole thing was about, and this whole thing was going to be was just flat out getting him stronger, getting him more prepared, and getting him just flat out just a more utility to use in his own fights. And that's exactly what happens. Throughout this time, they have fruitful training, but the thing is, there's someone and something that happens, and Izuku would not be there to help. And that would be Tenya Ida being attacked by the hero killer. The hero killer would attack Tenya Ida, and he would put him in critical condition. Izuku would be extremely sad about this and would be at a loss for words. He can't believe it. One of his own classmates was taken down. One of his own classmates was brutally injured to the point of almost no return. He asked Mirko, where is the hero killer? What happened to him? Is he gone? Dead? Is he alive? Is he captured? Is he in prison? Mirko says that he got away. That unfortunately, he got away. In which immediately Izuku shakes his head and thinks that's horrible. He got away, and he basically got away with murder. Mirko tells him that soon he'll be able to get what he wants. In which he asks, what do you mean? And Mirko says that soon he'll be prepared for people like that. For people like the hero killer. For people like Stain. Stain may be out there still, but he'll be well prepared. He'll be well prepared to take down someone like him. Izuku asks if when he gets his provisional hero license, will he be able to come back here? In which, Mirko nods her head and says that he's always welcome. Always welcome. Especially because she never gets to have a really good training partner. Plus, who's going to be able to take down the hero killer if it's not going to be them? In which Mirko laughs a bit and sends him on his way, as Izuku is thinking that it may not be for revenge, but it will be for justice. Izuku walks away and heads back to UA High School, and they all prepare for what's going to be their final exams. Izuku way more ready than you could possibly imagine. But first, they have a written portion. This written portion would tell a ton of things. He would easily be able to pass it and pass it with flying colors. So much so that he actually helps a ton of his classmates as well get good grades on it. And he helps, with the studying and stuff like that. But the practical is where things are going to change. Izuku, would walk over to the gym with all of his classmates, and they would approach this kind of area, and they would realize that this practical will not be against robots like they all thought. It will be against teachers, and that is something else. Izuku hears that his partner is Bakugo, and he puts out his hand ready to shake Bakugo's hand, and Bakugo shakes his head and decides to shake the hand of Izuku, telling him that whoever it is, they're going to beat down. They are going to defeat him, but then quickly their smiles would become, let's just say, concerned faces, because their person is All Might, the one and only number one hero, All Might. And Izuku, he may be concerned, but he is up for the challenge, ready to take on the number one hero, ready to take him down. And quickly, what their idea is to have one person on complete and utter attack and as much power as possible behind his attacks, and the other, well, the other will take the blow. Will take the blows, the hits, and all the punches, and that will be Izuku. Izuku decides that that's how it's going to be, at least for the beginning of it. And when their kind of time comes and they go charging at All Might, they quickly realize the power that All Might holds. Punching toward All Might, or basically these gusts of wind would be punching toward Izuku and Bakugo, and they would punch toward All Might. Izuku would take the first punch from All Might and counter it, punching him dead in the stomach. Boom. As he punches him in the stomach, he would kick him in the leg, and he would actually put All Might on the ground. Everyone's shocked. No way. Is he going, blow for blow with All Might himself? This would shock everybody, thinking that what kind of training did he go through to get to this point? All Might, in a way, would be smirking, thinking that this kid, he might be the answer. He might be the answer to it all. But quickly followed up, Bakugo would follow up with an explosion, and then another explosion, as Izuku would stay within the radius of the explosions because he's not affected by them at all. He would literally be punching All Might as explosions would engulf both would engulf both Izuku and All Might. They would be fighting, boom, going blow for blow, boom, 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 over and over again, and they would be going absolutely insane. And All Might could start feeling the punches that Izuku is actually handing out. And it seems that Izuku, he may be feeling the punches from All Might, and he may be getting hurt by it, but it doesn't mean that he's ready to stop. In which Bakugo continues to just be relentless as well. Explosion after explosion after explosion. And eventually, they would be able to actually take All Might down and put capture tape or capture cuffs on All Might, defeating him in an actual good old brawl, a straight up brawl. And everybody, they're at a loss for words. How the hell did that just happen? In which All Might would stand up and he would shake both their hands, saying that they've both come a long way, and the fact that they were able to work together the way they did today, they might end up being an unstoppable duo. They might end up being two of the best heroes to come out of UA ever. In which, hearing this, this is a different level of respect from someone that they look up to so much. This is a different feeling that they've never had before. This is awesome. All Might just acknowledge them to being potential top heroes when they're done with this and when they're done here, which is absolutely insane to think about. But with all that said, Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo are the winners, and they would now be allowed to go off to the forest training camp. The training camp that will allow Izuku to get even stronger, even faster, even more durable, and even better. But before all that is said and done, there's a conversation that needs to happen between Izuku and All Might. And he awaits, wondering what that conversation is. Izuku sits waiting in the principal's office as All Might would eventually arrive in his Small Might form. He would tell Izuku the story of One for All, tell Izuku what happened and why he looks like this and what happened to him, showing him the wound on his body. And then he would tell Izuku that his quirk, One for All, can be passed down from person to person, and it gets stronger every single person that receives it. Izuku asks him, why is he telling him this? Like, why bring this up? And he tells Izuku that he wants him to be his successor. He knows the potential that Izuku has with his own quirk, his ability to evolve after every single fight, his ability to evolve after being hit, after being basically punched or kicked or whatever. His evolution continues. And imagine what he can do with the quirk of All Might, the quirk known as One for All. If he can potentially evolve with One for All, it could even get more powerful. It could get even stronger, continuously getting more and more powerful, eventually to the point where villainy is impossible because Izuku Midoriya will stop it all. Izuku sits there for a second, wondering, is this the right idea, the right call? Will he be the hero he still wants to be if he takes on the quirk of someone else? If he continues the power of someone else? He sits there for a second. And he wonders, should he or should he not accept the offer of the one and only, the number one hero, All Might? Well, you're going to figure out and find out that decision on the next part of What If Deku Had an Evolution Quirk. Izuku Midoriya is asked by the one and only All Might if he wants to take on the powers of One for All, one of the strongest and most powerful quirks out there. And he wonders, should he truly take on the burden of learning One for All? It might be perfect for his quirk, but it also could be massively detrimental if everything doesn't work out perfectly. He has known that his evolution quirk has helped him massively with durability, with speed, with strength, every single thing. So what if it helps him massively with this? But what if it does the opposite? He has no idea what truly can happen if he decides to actually utilize this quirk. So he kind of thinks about it, ponders over it for a little bit, and eventually he would come to the conclusion that he shouldn't take the quirk. He tells All Might that there are other people that are just as worthy, if not more worthy, than even him. Maybe even heroes that are more further along in their hero journey. And he tells them this, and All Might immediately in his head thinks that there is somebody else that was highly recommended to him in terms of giving him One for All. So he tells Izuku that he understands and that he hopes the kid has, you know, all the progress in the frickin' world. And Izuku says that he's gonna be just as strong, if not stronger, than even All Might without the help of even his quirk. In which All Might nods his head and says that he expects the absolute most out of him and he expects him to be absolutely great. In which that's exactly what Izuku Midoriya wants to do. And this idea of being great and being the best would come very, very soon, because they would have a 4-ish training camp opportunity that would basically be coming very soon. And they would all take a bus over to this 4-ish training camp, and they would get launched off the mountain by the Wild Wild Pussycats. They would fight all of these different Earth-like monsters, and, you know, the same old, but this right here is where things are different, because no villain invasion actually happens with Shigaraki and Kurogiri being captured initially. They were captured initially because of all of the extra work and the extra help that Izuku was able to give in this timeline or in this different universe, and Izuku now gets a full-fledged forest training camp of all this training. And this training is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Aizawa basically has Izuku work in every single type of environment you possibly can. I mean, every single person that's there would use their quirk on Izuku until he is basically immune to it. In terms of explosions, he's already basically immune to it. But in terms of ice, fire, and normal stuff like that, or different stuff like that, he wouldn't be immune to it just yet. So his durability rates, his durability to weather effects, his durability to everything would go up massively. I mean, so much so that he would take beatings from Tiger and just shrug them off. Every single person that's there, he would take their absolute highest kind of strongest super move and or strongest power, which super moves are something they're able to get to during this time as well and work on different things too. But Izuku is able to defend against everything. I mean, at the last day, they decide to see what everybody is truly capable of, which, by the way, they have gotten a far bit stronger. Like, every single person has gotten a far bit stronger, and they decide, well, let's see what everyone's capable of, so everyone goes against Izuku. That is the type of kind of progress Izuku Midoriya is able to make within a week to 2 week time span with the proper training. Izuku would absorb and take on every single super move, super power, and or quirk you could possibly imagine, and he would be easily durable enough to take on massive explosions, giant waves of ice and fire, people that are like, you know, people that punch extremely hard, cannonballs getting shot out of a cannon at an insane rate of fire, everything, even sound waves that normally would break the eardrums of many and crack their kind of bones to their core, every single aspect, every single thing you could think of, he basically becomes immune to everything. And he can feel himself getting that much stronger. Not only durability, but physical strength. His ability to move, walk around, run around. I mean, his body moves as if it's frictionless. I mean, to the point where you put ice on the ground, he has full control over the speed that he runs at. And don't even get me started on the running speed. His running speed might even be or topping the likes of someone like Tenya Ida. That is how fast he's able to run, how fast he's able to move. He has seen himself over and over again just break the mold just every single time, to the point where a lot of these teachers and a lot of the people there are kind of questioning what he can't do. I mean, what can he not do truly? I mean, he can't fly, but who's to say he won't be able to eventually fly? Imagine he can evolve to do so. I mean, they begin to even, or like, you know, during the training sessions, they try to even throw him off of cliffs over and over again to see if he would eventually fly, but nothing really works, and he hasn't really been able to get a grasp on that idea at all. But in terms of the entirety of the forest training camp, this was fruitful, not only for him, but for every single student there. Everyone getting far stronger than you could possibly imagine, and eventually this would be useful because when they're in their bus heading back to UA High School, the bus would be tipped over by a Nomu, and there would be some very, very scary villains coming to actually attack them. Because it's not just the Nomus, it's not just these creatures, it's also Kurogiri and Shigaraki and many of the League of Villains who escaped from prison, now ready for a fight. But this showdown would force the class of Class 1A to actually be in the middle of this fight, be in the middle of what will they have to do to survive. But luckily enough, they're all prepared for this and they're all ready for this. And they begin to fight off all of the Nomus you can think of. But a lot of them, they don't have any troubles. Shoto Todoroki, Katsuki Bakugo, all of them so much stronger, so they don't have any trouble fighting off, or at least maintaining distance from the Nomus. Izuku, on the other hand, he's so strong at this point that he can literally punch through these Nomus and basically just destroy them, ignoring any durability that these Nomus have. But while this is all going on, there's one person fighting the likes of someone like All Might, and that is All For One. All For One is trying to find some way to take down All Might, and he's not only utilizing the League of Villains to try to do so, but he's also trying to use his trump card, because not too far away, everybody can feel the rumbling and the tumbling of a giant creature, and that is Gigantomachia. Gigantomachia is spiraling, running at an insane speed toward this location and toward their location. But here's the thing. No one's ready to take on this giant monster. At least they're not 100% sure if they are. But with kind of the heroes being prepared and Class 1A being a lot stronger, everybody is prepared for these other little villains, leading to Shigaraki and the League of Villains actually being defeated quickly. But All Might's unable to defeat All For One quick enough to actually stop him from, or him being knocked out, because Gigantomachia now has arrived. And now he has two issues to deal with. And in seeing this, Izuku and many of the other Class 1A students go over to try to help All Might. With Shoto Todoroki's ice, he tries to cover Gigantomachia, but has a hard time doing so. But Izuku, he's in the fray already, trying to stop Gigantomachia in his tracks, holding him back and pushing on this giant monstrosity, even jumping up and punching him, trying to bring him down to size. But it seems like nothing is truly working. Izuku's new strength, yes, it has helped him massively, but it has not prepared him for a freak of nature like this. This is someone and something nobody was necessarily prepared for. But with eventually the defeat of All For One, all of the kind of the eyes and all the focus goes toward Gigantomachia. Izuku still trying his best to stop the monstrous creature, but the creature just will not stop, will not relent. And at this point, you have Japan and all of its heroes now evacuated, or has now evacuated all of the other citizens, but also are fighting this giant monster. Izuku, Class 1A, even Class 1B, and all of the other classes are out now, allowed to basically fight alongside everybody. And this giant monster, without preparation, is being dealt with, but they are having casualties. They are losing even students, other pro heroes that are not as powerful, and Izuku tries his best to hold the thing off. He jumps up, grabbing onto its neck, trying to hold it and hold it down, as Best Genius and many others try to basically cut the limbs off from underneath him, or at least make it so that he falls to the ground. As they're able to do this, they hold him still, at least for the moment. Izuku would hold on to these kind of Best Genius's kind of rope-like fabrics, you could even call them, and he's holding on to them for dear life, trying to hold this thing down. All Might, with the last bit of One for All, even helps as well, holding this monstrous creature down, and eventually Midnight herself would be able to get some of her own kind of her own quirk within the lungs of this creature, slowly but surely making it pass out. But it's just not enough just yet. They're trying their absolute best, but nothing is keeping the thing down, and they're trying everything. And it eventually leads to Midnight having to sacrifice herself to unquirk her quirk to a degree she's never done before. And with everybody holding the creature down, it eventually passes out, and all the hero or all the villains now lay dormant, and all the villains are now captured. But it doesn't mean casualties didn't happen. Students, heroes, Midnight, many others, they all fell to this creature because they weren't freaking prepared, and that really pisses them off. But still, Izuku wonders that if he had the Quirk of All Might for that long training session, if he had One for All, maybe he could have stopped this in his tracks. Maybe he could have evolved enough to the point where he could have put an end to this creature before anyone died. He looks toward All Might, and then looks toward everyone else that lays there or sits there kind of just out of it, or kind of sad at all the carnage, and he wonders, was this his fault? Was this his fault? His arrogance, thinking that he didn't need One for All, that he could have been better and he could have done things at a better level, and it would have all been just him. Maybe he should have taken the quirk. But All Might comes over to him before, knowing what the kid is thinking, and he tells him that it's not his fault. Far from it, at least, that they should have been better. That he should have been better, that All Might should have been better. But he shakes his head. All Might tells him, don't worry, that everything's going to be okay. Everything is going to be fine. They're going to make sure that everyone that is here gets a proper burial, gets truly a proper funeral, but also all the wounded gets to the hospital very quickly. And that's exactly what happens. Some days would pass, and they would have a funeral and a celebration of life for those who sacrificed themselves. But All for One, everybody else, all of these villains, the League of Villains have been shut down entirely. And everybody, well, they should be happy, but they're not. The casualties make it feel like they lost so much. The casualties make it feel like they lost so much more than they could have possibly gained. But at the end of the day, when you are a hero, sacrifices must be made. And that is what happened. Sacrifice. Sacrifice was made, and sacrifices were made in general. And this is what occurred. Izuku, well, he can't even get his head off the idea of what happened, but still, all he's thinking about is all the people that passed on. But before you could even go on to think more about those people, Izuku is already thrusted into another thing in schooling as they head back days later, and they're all told that they're going to be going out to get their provisional hero license exam, or their provisional hero license. And Izuku, well, he's out of it, not even thinking, not even really realizing what Aizawa is saying. But Aizawa even catches this, telling the kid to stay focused, that's right there, everything that happened, that is your day-to-day hero's journey. Your kind of idea that this could genuinely happen in this world. This could genuinely happen any day you could possibly imagine. And if he wants to keep everyone safe, he better keep his head on straight, because he thinks that he could be one of the greatest heroes. He has to prove it every single day. And that's what he's going to do here. The provisional hero license exam is a simple one, a very simple one. The first kind of plan, or the first kind of type of test, is you have to tag people out with some sort of like dodgeball kind of thing, but you have to tag their lights out. Izuku, when he's put into that scenario, his speed, his strength, and his quickness allows him to easily be able to do just that. But as they continue on, and as Izuku is dealing with so much in his head, the PTSD of what happened sort of kicks in, and well, the next test, or the next kind of exam, doesn't help with that PTSD, because this one is a rescue exam, and Izuku does really well helping and rescuing and doing all the things he needs to do, but it messes with his head quite a bit. All he can think about is the casualties, all the casualties that happened, and all the people that died because all of them, they weren't ready and they weren't strong enough. Yes, they won that day, but did they truly win? When you win, you also at the same time lose. And frankly, in war and in fights like this, there truly are no winners. There's only losers. And Izuku believes that wholeheartedly, but during this rescue portion, he tries his best. He does all he can, and he does quite a bit. He does really good, honestly, in the rescue portion of this exam. But when the villains show up, there's something in his own mind and body that makes him so angry, to the point where he does something that, frankly, everybody will see and think that this guy might be one of the scariest people to ever come out of UA High School. Because when Gang Orca would show up and Todoroki and Inasa would try and basically team up, but not really team up, really mess each other up with their fire and wind, Izuku would step up and face Gang Orca, and he starts beating on Gang Orca. He starts beating him senseless, especially after seeing what Gang Orca did to one of his fellow students, not from his own school, but his fellow student. And he starts beating on Gang Orca. Gang Orca tries everything, tries anything, and nothing affects Izuku. Izuku is an absolute tank, an absolute unit, someone who is borderline, or what feels to be a borderline, immortal. Izuku walks forward, beating on Gang Orca to the point where the sirens would go off, but he wouldn't even hear them. Continuing his beating and fighting, kicking, punching, slamming. He continues all of it, eventually leading to other people pulling him off. And Izuku is in shock at what he just did. Not killing Gang Orca or anything like that, but definitely hurting him and sending him to the hospital. And Izuku, well, he would sit at that hospital and sit there for a while. I mean, yes, he would get his provisional hero license because, well, at the end of the day, you can't knock him off for basically continuing a fight that he was doing to protect other people, so they don't really knock him off enough points for him to fail. But Izuku still is feeling extremely guilty about what happened, and he awaits for Gang Orca basically to wake up. And as he does, Gang Orca doesn't even really think that the kid did anything that wrong. He tells the kid that he knows what he's been through, and frankly, sometimes it is hard to peel yourself off of somebody and peel yourself off of the idea of survival. And the kid, well, he's been through a lot, and he was at the very center of it all, and he understands. And he tells him that he gets it, that he's not mad, he's not angry, he's not going to do anything. He just wants the kid to understand that he will get better and that he will be a great hero. He just has to believe it himself, and he needs to be prepared for so much to come. In which Izuku would nod his head and think that's the truth, that he needs to be prepared, and he will be prepared. And especially when he gets his chance going into actually learning from someone like, well, Sir Night-Eye. But that's not going to happen just yet, because Mirio decides that he wants to test everyone for a potential work study. This potential work study, or this idea of doing a work study, is going to be shown through the fighting skills of Mirio. And as everybody in his class, Izuku's class, loses to Mirio, Izuku would not be losing to this guy. He would definitely put up his own fights and borderline be kind of unfazed by Mirio's punches, and he would kind of evolve to fighting Mirio, stopping him from basically going into his permeation form, as he would punch Izuku at the same time, and Izuku would punch him at the same time as well, trying to find some way to defeat him, and actually tires out Mirio before Izuku even takes any sustained freaking damage. And Mirio realizes why Sir Night-Eye was so high on this kid in the first place, that he is an absolute freight train, that he may even have the potential to be stronger than someone like Prime All Might, that this kid, he's perfect to take on whoever and whomever he has to deal with. That is the reality of it, and he's perfect to take on someone like Overhaul, whose quirk is made to just absolutely destroy and basically kind of and take over and also disintegrate your body entirely. Overhaul can do so many different things by just touching you, and they know about this, at least to some degree, but they also had no way necessarily of preparing for it, other than someone like Mirio, who is extremely hard to kind of touch, in which after some time would pass, Izuku would finally get his interview with Sir Night-Eye, in which Sir Night-Eye feels like the kid is ready. Like, the kid definitely is someone who should be and will be prepared for a possible encounter with someone like Overhaul. And he tells the kid that he heard about his little PTSD kind of thing that happened, and he tells him that they're going to test him. They're going to make sure that he's okay, and they're going to always have him working with Mirio until he proves that his head is completely on straight. They even have him go to different therapists that are completely mandated by the Sir Night-Eye agency, and he's able to kind of get a grip a little bit on what's happening. He now knows, like, this is part of the line of work and a big part of the line of work, but frankly, even the therapists say that in this hero world, this is pretty damn normal for it to happen. Things like this happen, and a lot of these heroes walk around with a lot of PTSD and a lot of baggage, in which Izuku nods his head and understands where they're coming from, and understands that that is, frankly, the truth. Now, with all that said, though, Izuku would eventually have a patrol with the one and only Mirio Togata, other known as Lemillion. And this patrol would change everything, because this patrol would actually have them come upon the one and only Overhaul. But here's the thing. They have one thing in question. Do they stop Overhaul here and now, possibly ensuing a massive destruction on the city? Or do they let him walk away with the little girl that seems to be crying out for help? Well, you're going to be able to find out in the next part of What If Deku Had an Evolution Quirk. Izuku Midoriya and Mirio Togata are about to be face to face with the one and only Overhaul. But the decision needs to be made. What are they going to do? Are they going to allow Overhaul to leave with the little girl that seems to be crying out for help? Or are they going to try and save the little girl right now? And in the brain of Mirio, well, he's thinking that he needs to allow Overhaul to leave so that they can eventually get him, so that they can eventually catch him and then save everybody in a more, let's just say, fashionable manner. But in the mind of Izuku, that's not what he's thinking about at all. Izuku is thinking that he needs to get his hands on Overhaul, stop him for good, and shut down whatever he's trying to do. And before you know it, Izuku would put Eri behind him and begin to absolutely fight. And he fights Overhaul, and he starts to fight, dodging Overhaul's kind of quirk, dodging the touch of Overhaul. And frankly, Izuku's just too damn fast and also too damn strong. It's insane the pace he's putting on Overhaul, and insane that Overhaul can't even just get a leg up at all. Can't even get himself to a point where he can, like, you know, legitimately do something to Izuku. He can literally not do a single thing. And Izuku continues to absolutely beat on this guy. And eventually, though, Overhaul would finally get a grasp on Izuku's arm. And as he does, Izuku would look at his arm as it slightly begins to crack. But then as he looks at his arm, he can feel his whole body about to erupt. But as his body is about to erupt, it stops. The quirk that he's feeling, that he was feeling throughout his entire body, no longer is working. It's as if Overhaul's quirk no longer works on Izuku himself. He doesn't know what happened, but he assumes that it has something to do with the durability that is within him, and also the absolute beatings he has taken just in the past, and also just everything he's dealt with so far. His skin, his body, and his just entire kind of temple is unable to be cracked. And Izuku looks at him, looks at Overhaul, and tells him and asks him, how does it feel to be useless? How does it feel to not be able to utilize the quirk that you tried so hard, so freaking hard to, well, fix? The quirk you tried so freaking hard to hide. The quirk you tried so freaking hard to make the absolute pinnacle of your, well, gang, or the pinnacle of your entire organization. Izuku tells him that this is where things will end, and this is where he will crumble. Izuku begins beating on him, and Overhaul runs out into the streets as cars begin to crash around him. Izuku still beating on this guy over and over and over again, smashing his face into the ground, and everybody's watching in complete shock. What's happening? This is insane. Izuku, he needs to calm down. He needs to stop. What is he doing? If he continues this could be all freaking bad. He needs to calm down. Izuku, though, he's not letting up, not allowing this guy to do a single thing. And eventually, he's a bloody mess. Izuku looks at Overhaul as he's just, his jaw is cracked and fractured into, you know, different places, and he's just laying there, completely unconscious on death's door. But there's somebody that runs over to stop Izuku from going any further, and that's Eri. Eri and Mirio run over and tell him that everything's okay now, that everything is fine. But Izuku, well, he's completely out of it at this point. Just the anger that was flowing through him and the just rage that was just centering all around him was just too much for him to really deal with at that moment. But then he realizes what he did. He looks around to see many faces looking at him in complete disarray, and eventually they would have to leave. They would get Overhaul in prison and also hospital, and, you know, hospital attention, medical attention, but also would have Overhaul secured, and everything, well, would seem to be fine. But the thing is, it's not fine. It's far from fine, because Izuku would get many different letters from different people, and a lot of people would be kind of complaining about Izuku, saying that his provisional hero license should be taken away, that what he did, that it all should be taken away. And Izuku's thinking to himself, that's something he hasn't evolved in. One thing he has not evolved in is understanding, and also understanding and having the ability to calm down, the ability to stop when you have power like the power he has right now. And that's the reality of it. Izuku knows that he has so much freaking power, and Izuku knows that he has insane amounts of power, and he needed to make sure that he keeps it in check. But that's one way he has not evolved just yet, and he has to heavily deal with these repercussions. Don't get me wrong, there's quite a few people out there that believe that, I mean, the leader of the Shia Hazaikai overhaul got what he freaking deserved. That's what a lot of people are thinking, but there's a lot of other people that believe that, hey, this is this is not heroic. This is not you being a hero. You can't just drag somebody out into the middle of the street and beat him senseless. Like, that is not you being a true hero, and that's something that many other people are going to look at as massively, well, bad. And Izuku, well, he goes through a lot of just everything that normally happens, of course, with your Class 1A versus Class 1B, stuff like that. But with the villains already gone and the villains already dealt with, Izuku has to deal with this idea of him being a possible nuisance and also a possible bad hero to society. And he has to really bear that for the next 3 years of his high school career, or the next 2 years, which he goes into his second and third year holding on to this reputation. For a long time, he would hold this reputation of a hero that is dangerous, a hero that many look at as someone who might not be just up for the task and might not be ready for what's to come. And that's what's really scary for Izuku Midoriya. Izuku feels like he is ready, that he is prepared, that he is able to do everything that everyone else does, but that's not the case, at least in the eyes of many others. Yes, he stopped Overhaul. Yes, he was part of the raid of the Shia Hazaikai base. Yes, he helped with numerous villain after villain attacks, and he has shown on multiple occasions that he has evolved from that day, that he has evolved from the day that he lost control and beat somebody down so badly that many couldn't look at him the same. But I'm not gonna lie to you. A lot of people will still look at him badly, but there's a lot of heroes that begin to back Izuku up. A lot of heroes that begin to kind of basically tell everybody that this guy right here, like Izuku Midoriya, he is a hero. That he is the future. That yes, he made a mistake a long time ago, but guess what? Every single hero can change. I mean, look at Endeavor. Look at almost every single hero you could possibly think of. Every single one of them has changed. And yes, they are holding on and basically grasping onto straws for Izuku, basically showing that, hey, yeah, he might not be prepared, and his chances of being the number one, well, are practically nothing. And that's the case. He believed that nothing would stop him from becoming the number one hero, and he believed that, well, he would just evolve through it all. But he may evolve, he may adapt, and he may change, but it doesn't mean anyone else will change as well. And Izuku Midoriya, as he heads into his older years of, or his young years of really being a hero, and his older years past, well, being in schooling, he begins to realize that this is the case. He works with some of the finest heroes around, but it seems like he can never crack that top echelon of heroes, never crack that basis of being a top hero. And it's all because of that one singular day. And it's confusing, very confusing, because there's other heroes that are honestly just attitude wise and other things like that are far worse than Izuku, but it's because of what happened. It's because of the people that saw it, and it's because that it was right in front of their eyes. People can let go of rumors of mass bullying and rumors of horrible things other people have done, but Izuku has actual record of what happened. Izuku, well, he was shown doing all of the things that he, well, did. Izuku hurt that guy, but even though he was a absolute serial killer, aka serial type of villain, that is still not okay in the eyes of the people. But even though he continues to evolve, continues to get better, and honestly continues to show day in and day out that he is the strongest among all of his classmates, he still is petering, not allowed to reach in and gain that upper hand on eventually becoming the number one hero. And that is the reality that he sits in, the reality that he has to really deal with, even when it feels like it's so not fair. But eventually he would crack that top bit, he would crack that top 15, top 10 of all heroes. He would eventually reach it. He would eventually get there. And as he does, people would start realizing all of the good things he's done. Aizawa, All Might, and many others would also show and bring to the table everything, every single last thing that this kid has done from the age of 16 to the age of 25. Izuku has done so much, and he has brought so much to the table, and he continues to bring so much to the table, and it may not be easy to swallow, but Izuku has continuously changed and continuously gotten better and better and better. And even though half of Japan is too stubborn to realize it, Aizawa and many others would stand up there and tell them that Izuku Midoriya has the heart of a number one hero, and that the hero society and this hero scope of popularity, well, maybe it should be in question. And maybe this entire hero kind of society and hero work type of society needs to be changed for the better. Everybody would think that that's insane. Why would you ever say that? And blah, blah, blah. But maybe that's the case. And Izuku, he might be trapped in this endless loop of people not believing that he's the true hero. But all he knows is that he continues to evolve into a greater hero than anyone could possibly even deserve. But with that said, if you enjoyed this video or enjoyed this series, please show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the series. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.